Was Peter Strzok the author, recipient, carbon copy, blind carbon copy on any documents relating to the meeting between Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton on the Arizona tarmac?
I do not know the answer to that.
Will all of the documents relating to that tarmac meeting be produced in an unredacted format?
Congressman, the Inspector General is handling that investigation, and as I said, we're going to try to accommodate any congressional requests that we can, but I'll have to consult with them before I do.
So if the president declassified the documents, how quickly could they be produced?
If documents are declassified, they could be produced fairly quickly.
Is that like within a week?
Well, it would depend upon the sensitivity of the document. I can't answer.
If they were declassified, I guess they wouldn't be sensitive anymore. So, I mean, could we get them within a week?
Which documents are we talking about?
The documents relating to the tarmac.
Oh, well, I don't know if I don't know if they're classified. I don't know.
No, assuming they're declassified. How quickly would it take to get them from you to us if the president declassified them?
If there are documents that's appropriate to disclose, then we disclose them as quickly as we could.
When did Justice first learn that Nellie Orr was employed by Fusion GPS?
I do not know the precise date, Congressman.
Can you find that out and get it to us?
Well, if we know it, yes.
Well, we got to find that out, right? I mean,
Yes.
You've got the wife of someone who was one of the top counterintelligence officials in the Department of Justice working for the company that was a pass-through for money from the Democratic committee to Russians to get dirt on the president to discredit him both before and after the election. I feel like it should be a pretty high priority to figure out when that occurred, right?
I don't want to quibble with you except to say that Mr. Orr is not a counterintelligence official, but yes, I agree with you. In fact, I believe Mr. Orr is scheduled to testify before one of the committees, or at least to be interviewed next week.
Right, but that doesn't absolve us of the obligation to actually go and find out when his wife started working for these people that wrote this salacious and unverified dossier. So when did the Department of Justice learn of Bruce Orr's contact with Christopher Steele during the 2016 campaign?
Congressman, I'm reluctant to answer that only because I don't know all the information, and I want to make sure we know all the information before we give any answers.
We too want to know all the information. That's why we keep asking these questions. I mean, again, you've got this person who works at the Department of Justice whose wife is working for Fusion GPS, and during the campaign, he's meeting with the author of a dossier that Mr. Comey called salacious and unverified. And so I would hope that it would be a top priority to figure out when we first came to know of those meetings. Is that something you can get to the committee?
If we get all the information and we have a firm answer, I don't want to answer any questions until I know all the details.
When did the Department of Justice first learn of Bruce Orr's contact with Fusion with Glenn Simpson after the election?
Congressman, we have agreed to provide all the relevant documentation to the Intelligence Committee. I haven't seen it all, so I'm not in position to answer it.
So during Mr. Shavitt's questioning, he pretty thoroughly laid out the number of people on Mr. Mueller's team who have financial donations to Democrats, the Clinton-Obama campaigns. I mean, I think over half of the Mueller team donated to either Clinton or Obama. None of them donated to Trump. And so that's either one of two things. Either Mr. Mueller was curating a universe of people who hate the president, or it's just one hell of a coincidence that a whole lot of people had demonstrable bias that we learn more and more about each day. And so you've answered that question by saying, look, people have personal opinions, but that doesn't always influence action. And it's the action that is your responsibility to make sure is not infected by this bias.
Correct.
And I would proffer that, like, when Mr. Strzok goes and changes wording from gross negligence, a crime, to extremely careless, that's not a belief, that's an action. Like, if we can't find out, you won't tell us whether or not taxpayer money was used to go and buy this dossier. If it was, if the FBI was working with the Democratic Party to buy a dossier to discredit the President of the United States, that's not a belief, that's an action. If that dossier was dressed up as an intelligence document and brought to a FISA court, that wasn't a belief, that was an action. If Bruce Orr is meeting with the author of the dossier during the campaign and the head of Fusion GPS after the campaign, and as you sit here today, you can't tell us when that occurred, those meetings aren't beliefs, they're actions that undermine the credibility of this investigation. And I would certainly suggest that when Mr. Weissman, Mueller's number 2 in this probe, sends an email on his official Department of Justice email to Sally Yates praising her for defying the President of the United States, that's not a belief, that's an action. So my question to you is, like, what do you have to see in terms of the actions of people with demonstrated bias against the President of the United States before you will appoint a special counsel to investigate the clear bias that has infected this investigation?
Well, Congressman, there are a number of different issues that you've raised. With regard to the allegations of bias, as I've explained, our Inspector General is conducting a very thorough review of that. He's the one who identified the text messages, and so I'm confident that's going to be done appropriately. We're going to
Mueller didn't, right? It took the Inspector General doing it. Mr. Mueller didn't find this information.
Well, I don't. Mr. Mueller found it when somebody told him about it, but it was in the text messages, which the IG got access to.
It really makes you wonder how all these people that we're finding all this information about, with all these connections, ended up on his team. I yield back.